Reticular tissue is kind of a network of fibers. It has a loose ground substance, but it forms a network. So we have the white blood cells, the mast cells, and the macrophages. Now, macrophages are white blood cells that creepy crawl all through your body looking for things to eat. They're phagocytosis little creatures, basic little cells. They wrap around the bacteria, surround it, and then eat it, dissolve it. Macrophages. So we find these in the lymphoid organs like your lymph nodes, your bone marrow, your spleen, your thymus, those types of areas. These are flowing through the body, all through your system, just like dendritic cells and those types of cells. This is what they look like under the microscope, and we're going to take a look at these, a lot of these tomorrow. We won't look at all of them, but we'll look at a lot of them. Dense connective tissue. Before we looked at the tissues that were not dense. Now these are the dense ones. Dense means that they are really thick, tough, and have dense regular, dense irregular, and elastic type of tissue. The dense regular type of tissue has fiber. These are called fibroblasts. So whenever you see a fibroblast, that's a fiber, a primitive type of fiber. They attach to bones by way of muscle. These would be your tendons. Very tough. Most of the time, we don't tear tendons as much as we stretch a muscle or we damage a muscle. The tendons are very strong. If you tear your Achilles tendon, where's your Achilles tendon at? In the back of your ankle. If you tear that, you've done some pretty bad damage there, and it takes a long time for these tissues to heal. They don't heal very quickly. So tendons, ligaments, the covering over the top of your head, called aponeurosis, those are all types of tissues that we have. Now this is dense tissue. It's kind of really packed together. And you can see that there's not a lot of spaces or a lot of cells in between them. Dense irregular, the other one is dense regular. This is dense irregular. Also the major type of tissue is fibroblasts. Some of them are elastic fibers. They function in capsules around the organs. The ends of the joints have this tissue on them. They create a really strong area for frictionless motion. The dermis of the skin, which is your inner layer of your skin. We have the epidermis, then we have the dermis, then we have the hypodermis on your skin. This is really the stuff, basically is what our footballs are made out of, and baseballs are made out of dermis. Really tough stuff. That's what it looks like. See, it's not regular, it's not fluid shaped, it's not lying in a certain pattern. It's just kind of all over. This kind of looks like a steak, right? If you cut a steak open, this is what it looked like.
Not cooked steak.
Not cooked steak.
Okay.
The raw stuff. Tartar, right?
You get more nutrients.
More nutrients. More protein. More parasites. We have elastic connective tissue that is stretchy. It allows things for fibers to move and then retract back to where they were. It gives people ability to do back bends, things like this. Stretch. We can stretch these tissues and then they'll return back. They have a memory that will return them back to the regular strength. Just imagine somebody on the Olympics doing a back bend, the contortions that they do, and they can't come back up again. Oops, my ligaments are all pulled, I can't get up. Wouldn't work. Also, we find these in some of the large arteries and the bronchial tubes. The bronchial tubes are the tubes that we breathe in. It allows the air to get from our mouth to our lungs. They expand and contract. People that have asthma, these bronchial tubes will constrict, and we have to open them back up again. And this is the ability to stretch in the bronchioles. Cartilage, really cool stuff. Cartilage, if you've ever eaten a chicken wing or chicken end of the chicken leg, you'll find a piece of cartilage on there. Really tough stuff. You can chew it. You can eat cartilage. You can eat that little joint there out of the chicken. It doesn't hurt you. It actually gives you nutrients. Okay. So there's 3 types though that we find are most common: hyaline, elastic, and fibrocartilage. Hyaline cartilage is tough stuff, and it has what they call chondroblasts, which are the primitive cells for cartilage, and they have the chondrocytes that lie inside little openings in the cartilage, and they are constantly laying down, the chondroblasts are laying down more cartilage tissue so it repairs itself. We're always damaging our cartilage in our knees, our hips, our elbows, joints. These have cartilage in them, and we need to replenish them, especially the ones that have the little cushion of cartilage between them, like the knee. The jaw has a little cushion of cartilage there that we can destroy if we're not careful. But this forms, even as we are developing, we are cartilage. Primitive babies, when you first start, you don't have any bones. You're cartilage. The cartilage turns into bone, and then they harden as you get older. So little bitty babies that are just born, they don't have fully formed bones yet. So you have to be very careful with them. If you break cartilage, it takes a lot longer for the cartilage to heal than it does bone. So if you have a little baby and someone grabs his arm and pulls it and snaps it and breaks it, that's going to take months and months for it to heal. Whereas a broken bone, if they break that little piece of bone that's in there, it'll heal very quickly in kids. What's that? Oh, okay. I heard somebody say something. So. Also,
they better run. That's what we're talking about.
What's that?
They better run.
They better run. Also, we find the cartilage in our rib cage, right along our sternum or our breastbone. We have cartilage, lots of cartilage right in here. It's not all bone right next to the sternum. It comes down even here at the base where our ribs, they always feel like they're ribs. Most of that is cartilage. Very flexible, so you can breathe in and breathe out. You have this expansion of your chest cavity very easily because of the cartilage. We have cartilage in our nose, in our trachea, and in the larynx. Where's the larynx at? What is the larynx?
Your voice box.
Your voice box, right. Voice box. This in your throat is cartilage, and that air has to go through that cartilage. So if something happens to that, you can't get air through there, you can't breathe. So you have to go through it easily. Nose, was it better to hit somebody? If you're going to get in a fight, just protect yourself, not in a bar fight. But if you got to protect yourself, where's the best place to hit them? In the nose? The nose? Anybody else other than the nose? Somebody said throat? In the mouth?
Depends if it's a male or female.
Why?
Oh, it's either the mouth or the cheek.
So why does it make a difference if it's male or female?
That's a good question.
I know. You're going to kick the guy in the groin, right?
Correct.
And once he goes down, then you
What
need
if
him
you-
in the nose.
What if you miss?
Oh, you don't miss.
What if you
Doesn't it
hit-
hurt if
What if
you
you hit
get?
him in the side of the leg?
It's still gonna hurt them.
Isn't it gonna hurt a woman if you kick her there too?
Yes.
It does.
So it doesn't matter.
It hurts the guy a lot more. You can demonstrate if you want to be a
Yeah, let's demonstrate it.
It does hurt a guy a lot more, but it doesn't always mean that you're going to hit pay dirt when you do that, right? Now somebody said in the nose. What's in the nose? Cartilage, right? You can go. Your nose goes like this and it breaks, and they go.
Your eyes water.
They throw some snot off and blood, and they come and they kill you. You don't put them down. You just make them mad now.
Hit him
You
in the
kick them
mouth.
you kick them in the groin, and you make them mad. You hit them in the nose, you make them mad.
Hit him in the temple.
Hit them in the temple.
So it's the cheek, right? You have to.
Right here, hit him in the temple.
There's
Why is that?
Are we trying to make people go blind?
If you hit him there, there's an artery behind there. But you have to hit him really hard, and you have to hit him in a right exact spot to make that work.
So you want to hit
I
him
was
like
trying
in
to
the
get somewhere
abdomen.
in front of.
Make it hard
What's
to
that?
breathe.
Wait, what are we
I
trying
think
to
he's
do
gonna
with that?
Just defend yourself, not trying to get away, right?
Hit the axillary nerve in the armpit.
Axillary nerve in the armpit. How you gonna get their arm over their hip?
Oh,
Why you gonna raise your arm a minute so I hit you in the arm?
I assumed they were swinging first.
Um,
You were gonna block it and I counter.
You have very little chance of hitting the axillary nerve, and it's not gonna do anything if you do.
There's a lot of boxers like UFC that hit him like right there where he's at.
Hit him here? Yeah. Hit him in the jaw? How about hitting him in the jaw?
Nose.
No.
Break everything.
If you hit him hard enough, you can actually knock him out, but that's not always, everybody, some people have iron jaws, they can just get hit and keep on coming. One of the best places to defend yourself, if you want to really slow them down, two places. For one, is right here in the trachea. Hit them in the trachea. It collapses their breathing tube. They can't breathe, and they're not going to chase you. Or you kick them in the kneecap. When you kick them in the kneecap, they can't run. They just fall down. So those are two areas that you can protect yourself with as you do it. I'll show you some others as we go throughout the semester. But if you know anatomy, you know can be very, very protective of yourself. You can protect yourself fairly well. You don't have to have a shotgun. You can protect yourself pretty good. I always tell my daughter's boyfriends, I know a little anatomy, and I can probably kill you in 1,000 ways. So we be very careful. So knowledge is good in that way. You just have to now be able to think these things through before that stuff happens to you. So it doesn't help and say, oh gosh, I wish I would have done that after you got knocked down and raped or whatever. I wish I would have done that. You got to think about it right beforehand. So is anybody a self-defense person in here? Have taken self-defense courses? Yeah? Good.
3 months.
So there's some things we can do that are just that correct anatomically. But yeah, you have to be careful in some of the old things where people say, oh, just kick them in the nuts and run. That doesn't always work. Doesn't always work. Yeah, not anymore anyway. Let's go on and on. So this is cartilage. This is what cartilage looks like. It looks kind of glossy and slippery. If you ever take a look at the end of a chicken bone, it's really smooth. That's cartilage on the end of the chicken bone. There's cartilage in your nose. It's very flexible. You can move it around. And it's clear. Cartilage goes clear up to the bones. You can feel that hard spot in there. So it makes a difference. When we get to the bones, we'll talk about more about the bones, how that works. Elastic cartilage, very similar to hyaline cartilage, but it's more elastic. This we find in the external ear. This is what you put your earrings in. The cartilage in your ear, right? It's very flexible. You can bend it, you can lay on it, wake up in the morning and it's all twisted around underneath your head, right? That's the cartilage in there. And the epiglottis, it's a little flat between your esophagus and your trachea. Keeps the food from going down in your lungs. Those are some things that are very, very flexible. Looks a little different than the regular hyaline cartilage, but it still has kind of a glossy, kind of a more of a constant texture to it. Fibrocartilage, we find most of this is in the pubic area. We have a disc between the pubic bone and also discs between each vertebrae of the spine and in your knee. The joint of your jaw has this type of fibrocartilage. The little discs that we find. Okay, really tough stuff. Between your vertebrae is this little fibrocartilage, and you jump out of a tree, they kind of compress, and then they go back to normal height. If you hit too hard, it compresses them and it shoots the the part of the fiber cartilage out, and you have a compressed disc or a herniated disc. And we'll talk about discs in the bone chapter also. Very tough stuff. This is really tough tissue. The fibers are close. They are interwoven with the ground substance, and the cells are still in the inside. Another type of tissue is a bone. Very hard, and everybody's seen bones, right? You know what a bone looks like. If not, we've got boxes of them over there. We're going to take a look at them. We'll get to be very familiar and intimate with the bones later. Not in that way, but in some ways, right? And then we're going to have take a look at how they form, also in the bone chapter. But they are very vascularized. They heal fairly quickly. They heal much quicker than cartilage or muscle or tendon or ligaments. If you break a bone within 8 weeks, it's pretty much healed up. Maybe 12 weeks if you're a slow healer.
Why is that? Is it because bones are so like detrimental? Like
Well,
your body's gonna rush more.
Is they just have a lot of blood vessels going to them, so they bring lots of nutrients in, right? And you look at it, it's a protective mechanism, and you want to make sure that those are strong. If you look at prehistoric times, if someone had a broken bone and they laid there for months and months, they probably died because they get infection, or they would have. So those people that couldn't heal very quickly perished. The people that could heal quickly survived. Yes?
Is there any way you can speed up healing?
There are some herbs that help with that. Lots of calcium in your body helps with it. Good nutrients from some protein, those types of things. And there's also an electrical impulse machine that they put on there that stimulates the growth of bone. So yeah, there's ways to do that. And the only place we find bone is in the bones, in the skeletal system. Right? We make blood in our bones, white blood cells, red blood cells. All these are produced inside of our bone cavity. Bone, when we look at them tomorrow, these are the coolest. This is my favorite slide that we can look at. Compact bone. It's really cool stuff. Blood. Blood is also a tissue. It has fibers, it has cells, and it has a matrix called plasma. So those are the three things that we use as a connective tissue, right? So it has transportation of gases, nutrients, waste products. Everything transmits through this circulatory system, transportation system of our body, the superhighway, if you will, of what's going on in the system. So we're taking the calcium we need for our bones, taking them to the bones by way of the blood. We're also taking the nutrients there for them to grow better. All those things are happening at once. So when you look at the big picture on how these systems and these tissues work together, they are all linked together in some way. We have to understand that. That's the biggest thing if you can get out of this class is how are these tissues linked together? How do they work together? And then you understand the material. But this is blood. This is mature red blood cells. They live about 120 days. They have indentation, or kind of look like Werther's caramels. They're not round and smooth, they're indented. It's because they've lost the nucleus. And they travel throughout the body every second, every day of your life. They carry oxygen and carbon dioxide with them. Pretty cool little cells. Now, we have three types of muscles. Anybody know the different kinds of muscles that we have in the body? Three types. Skeletal. Yep, skeletal. Cardiac. And smooth. Right. So where do we find these at? Where is the location of these three different ones?
Our cardiac would be where our heart is, right?
Yep, the only place you find cardiac is in the heart. How about smooth muscle? That was one of them. Where do we find smooth muscle at? The organs. What kind of organs? Which one?
Stomach.
stomach, bladder, uterus, right? How about skeletal muscle?
Your bones. Around your bones.
All around your bones, your muscles, your biceps, your triceps, quadriceps, all those muscles, right? Those are all the ones we have. They're everywhere. They are designed to help us move. But what controls our muscles? What makes our muscles contract? The nervous system. The nervous system stimulates the muscles to contract, but we also need things like nutrients, energy, ATP, calcium, right? Calcium has to be utilized for our muscles to contract and to relax. We have to have the right amount of calcium in our muscles for those to contract and relax. Without that, we get these muscle cramps that you have sometimes at night, middle of the night, all of a sudden, wham, you scream out loud and you grab your leg, right?
Why does it do that at nighttime?
It's because the muscles are, you've had a day where you've probably had been on them a long time, or you wore different shoes. You're low in oxygen and nutrients and calcium. Those are the three things that you're going to be, they need to replenish. There's an old Amish remedy that it's made out of vinegar and some herbs. If you take that and take a swig of it, within 60 seconds your cramps will go away. It's really cool stuff. Really rough to take though. It's pretty sour, but it works good. Skeletal muscle, we talked about that. Single muscle cells are called myocytes. Remember that for tomorrow. Single muscle cells are called myocytes or muscle cells, right? Our skeletal muscles are voluntary. What does voluntary mean? What does voluntary mean? If I volunteer to do something, what do I do?
You do it for free.
Do it for free? Not necessarily.
Like, it's something you're willing to do.
Something you're willing to do. Something that you can do because you want to do it, right? So we can will our muscles to contract. If I want to bend my arm, I can say, arm, bend, and it will bend because the muscles make it work, right? I can control my muscles. We can make facial expressions, all sorts of different things are caused by this voluntary control. Again, this looks like a piece of steak. Skeletal muscle is what we eat when we eat steak. When we eat cows, we eat skeletal muscles. Hamburger is skeletal muscle. Right? So next time you go to Applebee's, just ask for a hunk of cow. I don't know what they'll bring you, but you might get liver. Smooth muscle. We talked about that too. This is involuntary. We can't control it. A good example of smooth muscle is in our bladder, our urinary bladder. It's smooth muscle and it contracts as a unit, very slowly and methodically, and you cannot stop it from contracting. When your bladder gets so full, it will contract, and you will wet your pants. You can't stop it. Right? It's involuntary. Now you can slow it down because there's two little sphincters. One is voluntary and one is involuntary. We can open them up and close them. You do the potty dance or whatever, and you can keep yourself from wetting. But eventually, it will force those sphincters open and you'll have problems. Okay. Other ones, your blood vessels have in them, urine is released in these areas. Some pathways also have these tissues. Yes, yes.
I had a question about like peeing your pants, because when I was in high school, I was on the cross country team, and one girl on my team, like she would even like go to the bathroom like right before she ran, and she would like still like wet her pants sometimes.
That's the overstimulation of the bladder. Yeah, it becomes a situation where it's almost, some people, they get really scared to wet themselves. It's just an overstimulation, and the brain gets mixed up and releases those tissues and makes it happen. Most of the time when you're running like this or you're scared, it shuts off the urinary system. It shuts it down so you don't wet. So you can control that. You don't want to be running away from a bear and leaving a trail of urine that he can follow, right? So normally we shut things off, but in certain cases it overrides it and creates that problem. Yeah, like if you're, let's say you're in a play, you're really nervous about being in this play, or you're going to get up and you're a singer. If you want to sing a solo in front of 1,000 people, you know, you get really nervous. You feel like you have to go to the bathroom, but you don't. You go to the bathroom and there's not much there. It's just you have that feeling that you need to do it, but it's just psychological. You get that feeling. You got a question?
So what happens in elderly then? When they can't, when they lose? When they
Yeah,
can't?
you have those two sphincters. One of them, the internal one is involuntary. The external one is voluntary. When you get older, you lose control over both of them. So when you have to go, your bladder gets full. The involuntary one normally closes until it gets really full, and then it opens. But the voluntary one closes, so it keeps it still in. But when that one falters, comes right out. It's just a question the muscle's weak or the nervous is weak in there. And if they have like a prostate that's swollen, that causes dribble and all sorts of fun stuff. If the bladder is dropped in females that have had lots of kids, that's another problem too. They can sneeze and pee. Incontinence is pretty common. People over 40, 50 years old. I didn't catch that, and I probably don't want to know what that was. All right? Other questions? That's smooth muscle. Smooth muscle looks smooth. When you put it under a microscope, it looks smooth. It's not striated. It just looks really smooth and cool. So we'll look at that tomorrow also. Cardiac muscle, the only place you find this is in the heart. It's involuntary. If you don't believe me, try and stop your heart right now. Come on, stop it. Stop. You can't stop your heart. If you do, what happens?
You die.
You die. So, well, let's don't do that, right?
So what
No.
happens when, like, is it just a figure of expression if, like, your heart skips a beat or something like that?
Now you can have it so it gets irregular. That's okay. But when you stop it completely, no, that's deadly. Can't stop your heart. It'll beat probably 3.5 billion times in your lifetime or more. Yes.
What's the longest somebody can go without their heart beating?
You can go about 4 to 6 minutes maximum without oxygen, and that's about what would happen if your heart quit beating. You wouldn't get the oxygen around your body. So maybe 4, outside 6 minutes without getting some severe brain damage. Without oxygen, your cells die, and that includes your brain. And that's the most important part. But it will be the last thing to die. So involuntary control, myocardiocytes are the cells that we look at. Remember that for tomorrow also, myocardiocytes. And we have this really cool part about hearts is that they are self-stimulating. They beat by themselves. If I would rip somebody's heart out and lay it on this cabinet right here, they would keep beating until they run out of oxygen and ATP. Boom, 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 boom. And then it would slowly slow down and stop. It has its own pacemaker. It has its own rhythm that's set by that. So until it runs out of those things, it will keep going. These are also, when you look at them under the microscope, they have like little striations in them. They are really cool looking when you look at them under the microscope. I like looking at microscopes. They are really cool. So, nervous system. What do you know about nervous system? Tell me about the nervous system. I know you're all experts. This how we live? So what does the nervous system do for us?
Movement.
Enables us to feel.
Enables us to feel? Yep. What else does it do? What does it do to our muscles? What does it do to our muscles? Makes our muscles contract, right? How about, what are the five senses? Touch,
Smell,
smell,
taste,
taste,
See.
sight,
feel.
feel. Didn't we do that one?
Yeah,
Touch and feel.
to hear, is that, we do
Huh?
that one? Do we, like, do
Oh,
hearing?
sorry, I couldn't resist that. Yeah, hearing is the last one. I'm sorry. Gotcha. So those are the five senses, right? So those are keeps us in chance. But that's one part of the nervous system. It also makes our glands work. It makes our muscles work. It makes us digest our foods. It's really cool system. It's really big system too. There's like 5 chapters in this semester on the nervous system. Really big system. Everywhere. You got nerves everywhere. You can feel, touch, pressure, pain, heat, cold. All those sensations that come from your nervous system. And they're all felt, they're all recognized up here in your brain. That cool part of your brain. So nervous system is everywhere. It's brain, spinal cord, the nerves inside your arms, your legs, your fingertips, everywhere has nerve endings to make certain things work, right? All over the place. So nervous tissue is what we call irritable. It can react to our environment. It can be stimulated so that we can understand what's going on by way of sensory receptors all throughout our bodies. These are what nerves look like. We have the part of the nerve that looks like a cell membrane around it. We call this the perikaryon, or the neuron. And it has these long projections coming off of it called axons and dendrites. They receive the information and then transmit it to different parts of the body or different parts of the brain. Really cool stuff. We have the spinal cord, brings information from the feet to the brain and then back down again, and in a lot of different ways. Now, we have glands in our body, and there are 2 types of glands, 2 real basic types of glands. We have endocrine glands and exocrine glands. What's the difference between them? Does anybody know?
One's inside and one's outside.
Well, close.
Isn't it where they excrete it at? Whether they excrete it within the body or to the outside of the body?
Outside of the cell.
Outside.
That's right. We do that little change, is correct. Exocrine glands take it outside of the cell, outside of the body, where the endocrine takes it from into a gland.
Does endocrine have to do with hormones?
Exocrine?
Exocrine have to do with hormones.
Exocrine, yeah. We have endocrine, which is the hormones,
Endocrine.
and exocrine is through the ducts. Right? Endocrine glands are the ones that produce the chemical and then dump it right outside the body, right outside the cell itself. Exocrine is dumped into a duct outside of the cell, and then that takes it to the parts of the body. So the cell itself makes the substance, whether it's a hormone or a lipid or whatever this cell is designed to make, and then it puts it into the system in 2 different ways. So, so glands can make more than one thing. They can make aqueous solutions, they can make hormones, they can do lots of different things, but they form in either a unicellular or a multicellular type of a glandular look, and they have lots of different functions. So multicellular or unicellular glands do different things. Endocrine or ductless glands, we find these for the hormones. Exocrines are glands that dump the fluids into tubes. Your pancreas, for instance, has several different functions, but one of them is to produce chemicals to help you digest your foods. So they produce the chemicals that goes into a duct that runs down into the small intestine at the ampulla vata, and there it empties into that small intestine to help to break down the foods that you eat. We also have exocrine glands have the mucus glands in your mouth, in different parts of your body, and we have the sweat glands, the oil glands, salivary glands, mammary glands are all glands that produce a substance and put it in a duct or a tube, and then it's moved to a different part of that area. Okay, so difference between questions between endocrine and exocrine. We have a whole chapter on endocrine system. So, and then when we get into the skin, we're going to talk about sweat, oil, all that good stuff. Zits. Unicellular. Only ingredient is the only important part of this is the globulate cells, and that's ones that we have most important. Multicellular, a lot of different ones that secrete different substances as a unit. They have a secretory unit that makes, it looks different. It has different types of tubular systems, a tubular or a velar or a tubular velar, different structures that we look at. And we can look at those too as we go along in the next chapter. We have several different types of glands. We have serous glands. These produce really thin fluids like sweat, milk, or tears, and some of the digestive fluids, or digestive juices. Then we have mucus glands that produce mucus, like in our mouth. You always people see these commercials with mucidin in them that helps digest or break down your mucus. Well, that's not always the best thing either. We need mucus. It helps us to prevent bacteria from getting into the system. It's one of our first lines of defense. So there's a lot of things associated with that. Then we have some mixed glands that do both. They can produce kind of different types of tissues, different types of fluids that are produced. And then we have the cytogenic ones that are producing the egg and the sperm. These are specific glands, specific cells that will produce an egg or a sperm and then put it in a duct, and then it moves it out to where it can be fertilized. Evidently, I must be done. Everybody's getting ready to go home. All right, so tomorrow beforehand, come in if you need questions about things, if you don't understand, if you need work with post-tests, if you need something reopened or you need clarification on something, come into that. Otherwise, bring in the tissue lab tomorrow. It's a big lab, so don't be late.